Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to be going through the Are You Ready for Microsoft Copilot webinar today. It's going to be run with Riven, who you should all know as very valued customers of ours, and we're partnering up with Arrow today. So as a customer of Riven, you might not know me. I'm Will. I'm a new business consultant. I only joined just before Christmas, so it's nice to get to talk to you guys and have some conversation going. And from the Arrow side, we've got Scott, who's a solutions engineer. He's the tech guy. He'll know everything about Copilot. He'll be taking us through it. He'll be explaining what Copilot is, the impact of AI in business. We've even got some of the results from the early access of Copilot to show you how people were using it and how they found it. And then we're going to talk a bit about the prerequisites of Copilot, specifically around like the licensing and some of the security features that you'll need if you're interested in it. And then, yeah, we've got a couple of really cool demos towards the end to show you, and Scott will take us through that. Over to you, Scott.
Perfect. I've just asked to take control now. Once you accept that, I should be able to, there we go.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat throughout, and then we'll get to them at the end, and there'll be a bit of time at the end for a Q&A as well. I'm sure people will have lots of questions about all of this because it's very new. So yeah, just put them in the chat for now.
So yeah, if you do have any questions, happy to address them at the end. So yeah, guys, just a quick reminder, I'm Scott Brunton. I'm a solutions engineer here at Arrow ECS. We work in distribution and we support Riven with projects like this. I work specifically with the public cloud team, which encompasses Microsoft. A lot of my role is around enablement and training support with partners and their end customers on new emerging technologies like Copilot. So we know, what does it actually mean to be Copilot ready? What is Copilot at a high level, and what are the benefits for you guys of implementing in your organization? With that in mind, I want to set sort of a bit of a background for Copilot and generative AI at a high level. Technology is constantly evolving. In the last 20 years, the IT industry has completely revolutionized itself from being, a massively on-premise based industry to now a very hybrid cloud-based industry with continuous growth. AI and generative AI, Copilots, whatever you want to talk about, are really, the newest changes and some of the biggest changes really in the industry in the last few years. And we're going to see consumption of AI, utilization of AI in business grow massively in the near future. In terms of adoption, there is a massive appetite for AI in businesses and in domestic purposes as well. We saw ChatGPT, if any of you are familiar with that. It was the first publicly available generative AI service that was released now. I think it's going on about a year. Within 3 months, that service reached 100 million users. That's a completely astronomical number in such a short period of time, particularly compared to other things like Facebook or the internet. There's a massive appetite for generative AI and the ability to utilize AI for business purposes. And we're seeing that with the number of users and the interest. For example, Copilot, Microsoft, they just ran an advert at the Super Bowl for Copilot to introduce it to the world. It's the most expensive advertising space in TV, and they've used that time to introduce Copilot to the American audience, to American consumers and users. That shows you there's a lot of interest in Copilot and generative AI from businesses and from end customers. In terms of impact as well, AI is obviously still in its foundational era, but we are seeing the impact of AI on business value and return on investment for businesses, much like many other revolutionary technologies like the cloud, like the internet, like PCs. If you go further back, they're a massive aggregator of value for businesses, and we're going to see that with Copilot in the future. Moving on from that, Copilot now, Copilot for Microsoft 365 specifically, was released to customers in CSP in January this year. So it's still quite new for businesses. although it was released in an early access program last year around October for customers on enterprise agreements. This was a rather large commitment, so those customers that wanted it needed to purchase at minimum 300 seats. So there was definitely a big buy-in. So Microsoft were able to tell, how are users using it effectively in an organization rather than just a handful of users. From those users, from those businesses, Microsoft has done a survey, and the results are really quite interesting. So we see results such as productivity, 70% of, or rather the users were 70% more productive. The ones I like to look at are more around, time saving. So we're seeing 71% less time on mundane tasks, 64% time less processing email, 79% less time on administrative workloads. It's a massive time saver, but it's not just saving time, it's also improving the overall quality of the work. So it's not just throwing words on the screen. The actual end product that consumers are creating with Copilot is overall a better product. Interestingly as well, on the far right middle, I would point out that as being a very interesting statistic. 77% of users would not want to go back to working with Copilot. If any of you have been involved in rolling out new technologies, new solutions to end users, it's notoriously difficult. They're very hard to get buy-in from to start using technologies. These users were realizing the value of Copilot from day one. They are seeing the value, they're utilizing it effectively, and it's becoming a consideration for those businesses and for those users on am I going to stay at this business? Do they have Copilot? Are they able to support me as an employee? So it's very, very interesting, some of the results that are coming back from Copilot even in the early days of the program. In terms of what is Copilot, this is a question I get a lot from many different people. So there is no single Copilot product. There is no Copilot that includes everything. They're all separate products now. Imagine it as a family tree or a family name. Anything that's called a Copilot by Microsoft is essentially an AI product. And there are many different Copilots targeted at different purposes. This list is not complete. Top left is Copilot for Microsoft 365. This is the one we're going to be looking at. This is targeted at every employee in our organization. So whether they work in HR, IT, marketing, they're a director, or they're just a data analyst, they can benefit from Copilot for Microsoft 365. They can use it in their day-to-day roles. We have many more specific Copilots, like Copilot for sales. This is, as you would imagine, targeted at salespeople. It integrates into your CRM system, if you've got Dynamics or Salesforce, and gives you AI-powered insights on your customers' data, customers' information to make you a more effective seller. We have Copilot for security, which is actually just about to go into general availability next month. This is targeted at your security operations, SOC people in your organization to give them AI-powered insights on your security within Microsoft 365. And so on. So there are different Copilots targeted for different purposes. If you do have questions, I want to do this with Copilot, maybe it's under a different product, and we can help you with that. Ribbon can help you with that. Not all of them are necessarily available through CSP, but we have a lot of different workarounds and options for that. So what specifically is Copilot for Microsoft 365? The best way to describe it is your AI assistant at work. It's there to make that Copilot-enabled user more effective, more productive, creative as well. They're able to create content more faster and better. And they're also able to communicate better with people using the capabilities of Microsoft Teams. So it's there to make that overall user more effective and add more value to your organization by enabling them with generative AI and Copilot. In terms of its components, don't want to harp on from a technical point of view, but the key components you should be familiar with is first off the large language model, also or better known as sort of the AI model. This is essentially the intelligence behind Copilot. It's the service you're asking questions to and getting responses from. That is the brains behind Copilot. Next, and most importantly for Copilot for Microsoft 365 is Microsoft Graph. Only with Copilot for Microsoft 365 do you get access to Microsoft Graph. This is your data. This is you as a user in Microsoft 365. With access to Microsoft Graph, you can access all your information, data, and documents stored in OneDrive, SharePoint Online, Teams, whether it's Teams meetings, Teams chats, your emails, documents shared with your emails, and so on. Everything in Microsoft 365 you can find and use and create content with using Copilot for Microsoft 365. So it's making, essentially you as a user. Next is Microsoft 365 apps. So some of you might have noticed this already within the Microsoft 365 apps, including Teams, PowerPoint, what else we got? Not OneDrive, sorry. Teams, PowerPoint, Excel, Microsoft Teams, and Outlook. That should be the ones there, sorry. There's an option for Copilot within all those apps. So if I was in PowerPoint now, as we'll see in the demos later on, there will be a button in the top right-hand taskbar, which is labeled Copilot. It might be grayed out if you don't have a license. You can then open Copilot within that application, and it's able to understand the context of where we are physically, digitally, within that application. So if I'm in a PowerPoint on a specific slide, I open Copilot in the app, I can say, make this slide more visual, make this slide animated. It will understand literally where I am in the application because it has that natural language aspect. Next is the internet. So it's not just limited to you and your data in Microsoft 365. It's also able to find information available over the internet, publicly available information. So if I was to, create content based on information I have internally, it's also able to branch out through the internet, confirm that, or find additional information for you so that you are getting the best responses possible. This is all wrapped around the idea of natural language. So, the real power of Copilot is we're asking it human questions. It's asking, or rather understanding the semantics and the context of the questions we ask it. It remembers the history of our conversation. And it's like talking to another person. That's the best way to describe it. When we use, search engines like Google, we have to be very specific. I search for top 5 hotels in Tenerife. It will find that information for me. I can't ask it, more human questions, more contextual questions. It just won't understand them, and it won't find that information. Copilot is very easily able to understand the context of a question. If I ask it to reference a document, it understands the information in the document, not just that we're trying to look at this document and find it. So it's much more powerful what we can do with it, as we'll see with some of the examples in the demos coming forwards. One of the big questions I get from a lot of customers is Copilot secure to use as a service? And the answer to that is yes. It's an enterprise-ready solution from Microsoft. Copilot will inherit and respect an organization's security, compliance, and privacy policies. If you have implemented, for example, data loss prevention policies in Microsoft Purview, Copilot will respect those data controls, and in any content created by Copilot will respect those policies as well. Microsoft have also committed to the principles of responsible AI. So this is many key approaches to developing AI and maintaining AI. So it's responsible, they're maintaining privacy for users and users' data. They're respecting the integrity of intellectual property, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely a safe and secure service to use. The next biggest question is, is my actual data secure? And the answer to that is also, again, yes, your data is your data. Any content you create with Copilot, you maintain the intellectual property of it. So if I created a PowerPoint using Copilot, I, as the creator or as the business, retain the intellectual property for that content created. Microsoft doesn't take any ownership of that. Additionally, your data is not used to train the underlying AI model. So any information that Copilot has access to or is used to create content is not used to train Copilots. The biggest problem with ChatGPT was that as a publicly available service, they were training their model, training ChatGPT on the information and data that users are inputting into the service, which functionally is a good way of training AIs because we're getting a wider data source. The problem with that is people were inputting sensitive business information, sensitive business data into the publicly available version of ChatGPT, things like sales forecasts and HR documents and so on. Problem is people were able to go back to ChatGPT, question it and find this information because it's essentially been added into the data set that ChatGPT works off of. So that's obviously a massive risk for organizations. With Copilot, your data is completely logically isolated and is not used to train the AI model. Your data does not leave your tenant's boundary, and you always maintain control on the data, what happens with it, and what controls are around, how it can be shared, essentially. So you always have control of your data. In terms of the prerequisites, you need to have one of the following base licenses for you to be able to purchase Copilot as an add-on. So that's the best way to describe it. It's an add-on to an existing base license for users. Each user will need one of these licenses. This includes Microsoft 365 Business Standard and Business Premium, Office 365 E3 or E5, and Microsoft 365 E3, E5. So a user requires one of these licenses for you to then add a Copilot license on top. A recent change that's actually been added as well is it's now available through CSP for customers, education customers specifically, with Microsoft 365 A3 and A5 licenses, but only for faculty, not for students. In terms of the technical requirements, they're actually quite minimal. You just need to have deployed the Microsoft 365 Apps Enterprise. That is the version of the M365 apps you get with all of these licenses, and have it on the most recent update channel or the monthly update channel, just so those apps have been updated to support Copilot. Essentially, all you need to do then is assign the license onto that user, and they can get started with Copilot. That is all you need to do at a high level to get ready for Copilot and to assign a user for them to get started using Copilot. Obviously, there are a few things that we would recommend that I'll come on to shortly. Now, guys, I've got a couple quick videos for you to show you what it actually looks like for an end user to start using Copilot. First example is in PowerPoint. In this example, they reference a document that they've been emailed and say, Copilot, create me a PowerPoint based on this email, or rather based on this document. Copilot goes ahead, finds that document, it reads the content and creates the slides based on the content. So it's not just generic information based on the title of the document. It's reading the document, understanding the context, adding images, adding text onto the slides that relate to what the actual document pertains to. And we can go back and start editing it. We can start adding animation, all of those things with Copilot. So I like to say, it's not giving you a final product, but it's giving you a really good first draft. It's getting you 80 or 90% of the way there to a final product that saves you a massive amount of time when creating content.
Now let's say you're getting ready for your customer pitch meeting. Everyone is at a moment when they wish they could turn their proposal into a customer-ready presentation without having to start from scratch. Well, guess what? Now you can. Using just your own words, Copilot can translate Word into PowerPoint, and it can also translate PowerPoint into a Word document. Now you have a professional-looking presentation that you can hone and polish. Let's say you want to add a slide. Give Copilot some quick instructions. There it goes, ready for you to review. So this slide is too wordy. Let's ask Copilot to make it more visual. I'll give it a few seconds. And check this out. Copilot can even animate the slide. It gives it a professional design treatment in a single click. But it doesn't stop there. Copilot can even generate speaker notes. No, I'm serious. Speaker notes. It's not only a time saver, it's helping me be a better presenter and close this deal.
There we go, guys. That's a quick example of how you can use it to very quickly create that content. Myself, if I was being honest, it'd take me an hour or more to create 6 slides to that level. And it probably needs a lot longer to actually polish them off to a high standard. That's maybe just me. But we're seeing how quickly we can start using it to create content. You'll see there, like they asked Copilot to add a slide about the cost benefits of sustainability. That's a very contextual question, and it understands what we mean by that and is able to deliver a slide based on the question that's been asked. So we're asking those natural questions. I could ask Will, to create a slide by that. If I asked Google to do it, it wouldn't understand what I'm trying to say. That's where I'm coming from with this idea of natural language. Next is Copilot in Microsoft Teams. So it's very different type of functionality, more so focused on collaboration. With this, we can use Copilot to follow meetings. So if you guys had Copilot at the moment, you wouldn't have needed to turn up. You could have followed this meeting. It allows you to get essentially, AI-powered notes and insights on a meeting you didn't attend. So it's not just giving me, a 10,000 word verbatim note essay on what we talked about. It'll be picking up the key points. It'll give me a summary. It'll give me, what are the most important takeaways, who actually brought them up. So it'll be like Scott talked about Copilot's readiness, and these are the key points. This is the time in the meeting, because it's recording it. You can go back and look and watch exactly what he's saying. If I was to say I need you, Will, to deliver me this report by Thursday, it'll pick up that task and who's been assigned that task and create an actual task for you in Teams that is actionable. So it's doing all these things for you automatically. We can also use it live in meetings. I could open Copilot now and create a summary of what have I discussed so far, what are the key points, has something been missed if there's an agenda, so we can be more effective in that meeting at that point in time.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
Perfect. So that's the example what you can do. Again, very different to what we saw before in PowerPoint. One thing that they did point out is these references here. Don't know if you can see, it's like a little number. And whenever Copilot references something, creating content or otherwise, it will give you a source. So in this case, it's a point of time within this meeting. But if we was creating that PowerPoint or using it in email to create draft emails, whatever we're using for, there's always a trail of where it's getting its information from, and we can follow it. So it'll take us exactly to where it's got that information it's referenced. If it's a document or a website or a Teams meeting, wherever it is, it'll show you where it's getting that information. So you can always track and understand how it's getting that point. Where is it coming from? Not included there's a couple of the examples. So we've got Copilot in Excel. We're not going to show you the demo here, but in that demo, it essentially shows you how you don't need to be a data analyst. You don't need to know how to use Excel effectively. You don't need to know how to create formulas or use like advanced functions like PowerPoint, pivots, etc. to graph data. You just need to know how to ask it the questions. So if I've got sales forecast data for the next 3 months, I could ask Copilot in Excel to give me the key summaries, the key KPIs, the highest performing products, all of those things. It'll find it for me, graph it really nicely if I want it to, and you can ship it out to whoever needs to see that information. So you don't need to be a data analyst or to be an expert in Excel. You just need a Copilot license these days. Similarly, in Word and Outlook for drafting emails, I don't need to be, Shakespeare to write my emails. I can do it with Copilot. If I'm referencing a document, I can draft an email around that very, very quickly to send out. Moving on to a slightly different topic is the idea of, everyone in an organization can benefit from Copilot, as I mentioned at the beginning. But everyone's going to use it differently, depending on their role in the organization, depending what department they belong to, depending on the way they actually work. They're going to utilize Copilot differently, and it's important to understand that. And one of the key activities we recommend when looking to implement Copilot is to perform a user personas exercise. This is identifying, who are my key groups of users in my organization, what are their key tasks, and where can we implement Copilot to see the most value. So if we take a salesperson, for example, we all know salespeople. All they want to do is sell. They don't want to do anything else in their day-to-day role other than sell to their customers. A lot of activities go into sales that aren't directly relevant to a salesperson's role. Let's say things like administrative tasks, administrative workloads, sending out marketing email, marketing content, creating PowerPoint slides, perhaps, and so on. Many of these things go into their day-to-day role, but take away from their primary function of selling or whatever it is that they're doing. And that's where we look at implementing Copilot, identifying those use cases where it is going to have an impact and map that out for that user. So if we take, for example, this salesperson, there's an example here of their day-to-day role, how they've implemented Copilot in their day-to-day role to save time or to create content more effectively or to a better quality. In this example, they start off in the day, they use Copilot to summarize all of their Teams chats and emails for the past month. If I was to do that, it would probably take me an hour or more to go through that quantity of emails and messages. And then they use it also to identify any outstanding tasks. I probably could do that in an hour, but I don't think I would actually identify the correct things, if I'm being honest, because I'd have to rush. There's a lot of emails that I'd have to go through. Next, they use Copilot to actually draft an email. Don't know the context on this. It could be, a marketing update, a newsletter. It could be a technical products update. It could be anything. If there's a document I can reference as well for it, I can use Copilot to structure the email around that. I could include a key summary, key points based on the document, or I could include context. So how do I actually want to structure this email? Is it for a technical audience? Is it for a sales audience? I can add that into it. So it's formatting the wording in a way that targets the audience. If it's a sales audience and I'm sending a product update, a technical product update, I don't want to overwhelm them with technical jargon. I can ask Copilot to keep it simple, to use simplistic language, or vice versa. I can tell it to use more complex technical language to explain the content. I can also tell it to be concise, so it's not going to send them a 10,000 word email. We can have just the key points, key information, so they can read through it very quickly and get the key message that's being trying to address there. There's Copilot in Excel. I talked about that. It makes everyone a data analyst. We don't need to be an expert in Excel to get those AI-powered insights. And we saw what we can do in PowerPoint again to create content. In this example, they insert the insights they get from Excel into PowerPoint to effectively show, an annual report using Copilot. So they found all the information, the insights in Excel with Copilot, and then they very nicely visualized it in a PowerPoint presentation that they're going to deliver to their management team or whoever it might be. After this, they use Copilot in Teams. We saw a lot of the functionality there. They first used it live in the session to say, what have we discussed so far in this meeting? Are there anything is there anything we've not addressed, or is there any questions that have not been answered? So they can target it there in that meeting. They don't need to send a follow-up email or create a secondary meeting for something that they might have missed out in that initial session. Afterwards, after the meeting, she missed a few chats. She might have missed a meeting that she wasn't able to attend. So she uses Copilot to summarize those meetings in that call. So she's getting that information digested for her without having to be there in that session. So here we can see in just 6 examples, you'd hope someone used Copilot more than 6 times in a day, how they're already saving time, how they're already being more productive. And this is something we want to do for all of our users, not individually, but as groups, grouping them to salespeople, HR people. You probably want to be a bit more granular, maybe to specific teams, departments, whatever it might be. But identifying those use cases, finding where Copilot can be implemented and has value. it has a good way of structuring it as well. So when you do roll it out, you can give a list of these are the things you do day to day to that user. Here are things we can do with Copilot. So they have something to structure around when they do get it. Next, I want to talk about AI readiness. So for you guys, when you do look to rolling out Copilot, these are the things I'd recommend you work on beforehand so that you are seeing the value of Copilot, so that you're protecting sensitive business data as well, and so that users are able to see the value and utilize it effectively. Starting off, we have standardizing onto Microsoft 365. So Copilot will only be able to find users' data, information, and documents stored in Microsoft 365. If users have documents and information stored on premises, in on-prem file shares, SharePoint servers, Exchange on-prem servers, etc., Copilot won't be able to find that information, find those documents. So we're limiting users' ability to use the service effectively, essentially. In that case, we want to be, looking to migrate and modernize them into Microsoft 365. If we have SharePoint on-prem servers, we're not wanting to look to moving those to SharePoint Online, perhaps. Similarly, if users are on third-party solutions, things like Google Workbooks, Gmail, etc., essentially alternatives to Microsoft 365, if the data is not in Microsoft 365, we can't access it. So again, we need to look at consolidating them into Microsoft 365. Another point is around propensity. So if users are in Microsoft 365 already, are they actually utilizing those apps and applications and services effectively? Are they using Teams or are they using WhatsApp? Are they saving their documents locally to their device, or are they saving them to SharePoint Online and OneDrive? We need to look at how our users are actually using these services to make sure that they're going to get the value out of it when we do give them a Copilot license, to ensure that essentially their data is there and it can access it. Skip that slide for now. Next is around protecting sensitive business data. So Copilot does present a risk for organizations around protecting sensitive business data, particularly around accidental leakage of this sensitive information and sensitive data to unauthorized users. One of the biggest problems many businesses have these days is around data control and having an ineffective data strategy. It's really common particularly in things like SharePoint sites, team sites, for permissions management to not be effective, for users to be added to team sites or SharePoint sites, and then for their permissions not to be removed further down the line. And someone uploads some sensitive information or sensitive documents to that share site the user has access to. Why is this a problem with Copilot? Well, Copilot has the ability to show users or find documents and information anywhere that they have access to. It doesn't grant them any additional permissions, so it doesn't grant them new access to documents. Rather, it has the ability to find anything they already have access to. So I could, in a way, structure a question where Copilot links it to something I wasn't intentionally searching for. So I could hypothetically be looking for sales performance data, and it links that back to a HR document I have access to, I shouldn't have access to, on salesmen's salaries, things that I shouldn't have access to. And that's where lies the problem. It's I don't want to say it's introducing more risk, rather it's highlighting a problem that's already there in the organization. So that user already has access to that document, already has access to that sensitive information. In a real world scenario, they're probably never going to look in that SharePoint site. They're probably never going to click into that file and look at that data. The problem is Copilot can find it for them. So we need to be conscious of that, and we need to look at formulating our data strategy to ensure that we have data controls in place, that users have access to the right information, and what can they actually do with that content and information when they have access to it. So, potential risks with Copilot do include exposing sensitive business data to unauthorized users, as I've discussed. Data exfiltration, so if they've got access to it and they've created content with Copilot, are they trying to save that data locally, or are they trying to share it with people who shouldn't have access to it? Just because I'm authorized to access a document doesn't mean the person in the room sat next to me is, or maybe my friend back home. I want to have controls in place around what I'm doing with that. And finally, threat actors. It makes it easier for threat actors if they do get access to a Copilot-enabled user to find data on your organization, to move laterally within your organization with Copilot. So they're all considerations that need to be planned for with your data governance strategy. With this in mind, there is a lot of tools available in Microsoft 365 through Microsoft Purview that we can implement to effectively create a data strategy to control what our users are doing with data. So we have tools like data loss prevention, sensitivity labels, Azure information protection, information barriers, automatic labeling policies, so on and so forth. All of these rules can be implemented to control who has access to what rights do they have for that document. So if they can access it, can they save it locally? Can they share it with people? And so on. We have automatic rules as well available. So if someone creates, some crazy person in our organization creates an Excel document of our customers' phone numbers or credit card numbers and saves it to their OneDrive, we can automatically apply rules and policies based on the content of that document or content created by Copilot. So it will restrict them from sharing it, restrict them from saving it, etc., etc. All of these are capabilities within Microsoft Purview. The abilities to use these depends on the licenses you do have. I think that'd be a discussion you'd have with Riven, and we'd always be able to support with that as well, Arrow, if there's further discussions. But essentially, all of the tools are available for you in Microsoft 365. It's all around how you implement those and how you develop your data strategy. Knowing your data as well is just as important. Where actually is my data? Is it all saved in one SharePoint site? Is it all in this user's OneDrive? What type of data is it? And what risk does it present? There are different levels of sensitive information. A phone number versus a credit card number. Both of those are things we want to protect. One of them is obviously more important than the other. How can we classify that data then and apply rules that respect the level of risk that type of data presents to our organization? It's not just about implementing a data strategy. We want to sort of review the data in our organization. Do we have a lot of redundant data, legacy data we don't use? Do we have bad practice around saving data? Is everyone saving it locally? Is it the saving 100 versions of the same document separately? All of those types of conversations. So every customer is going to be different. It's something you need to work through with Riven to identify what's actually best practice for us. What do we need to do to get ready? The capabilities you have as well, I briefly alluded to this, will depend on the licenses that you do have. So this is the base licenses I'm talking about here. This list is not at all complete, but gives you a high level understanding of the type of license I have implements my capabilities to implement data controls. So I have, for example, Microsoft 365 Business Standard. This does not include any data governance controls at all. So a user with this license can be given a Copilot license, can start using Copilot, but I, as an IT admin or a business owner, have no ability to control or implement data controls in Purview that restrict what this user has access to or what they can do with those documents. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If I have Business Premium, I do include this. This is not a great list here, but I have many of the core capabilities of Purview, like data loss prevention, Azure information protection, etc., to implement these data controls, but I might be limited in ways such as sensitivity labeling. I have the ability to create and apply sensitivity labels, but I can only do this manually. I can't do it automatically based on document content. I need to be looking at Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 licenses before I'm able to get the full suite of capabilities and more the advanced capabilities like automatic labeling. So again, it's a conversation with Riven you could have on what do we currently have, what do we need, what are the requirements for this. Finally, around this is around empowering your employees to use Copilot effectively. So still a new technology. Many people haven't used ChatGPT or used Copilot in many of its other different forms. They don't know how to structure effective questions to Copilot. They don't know how to create content or find information effectively with it. We need to train our users use it effectively. There are many Copilots available for us, either free or free with existing licenses. So the one I would point out most would be Bing Chat Enterprise. So this is effectively Copilot in the Edge browser. So if all of you was to open the Edge browser now, you would either see Bing Chat Enterprise or Microsoft Copilot in the Edge browser. So this is a free version or a paid version, which is included with Business Standard, Business Premium, or E3, E5 licenses. This gives you access to the generative AI model, to the large language model, so you can start asking questions of it. It's the same thing, just it's limited to the Edge browser. We can start creating content, finding information. So users are getting that experience with Copilot just within the Edge browser. The benefits of using Bing Chat Enterprise is it does have commercial data protection. So information you do input into the service is protected. It's not exposing sensitive information or business information outside of that tenant. The limitation of using the free version, literally everyone has access to the free version if you've got an Edge browser, is that it's I think they limit the number of daily queries you can ask, and they have no data commercial protections in place. So it's a good training ground, again, just to be wary that whatever you do input into the service is at risk of being exposed. So if you use it in a limited capacity, it's still a good training ground, really. There is a science and an art to creating prompts. If you read through this list here, you'll see, many of the points are things that you would do if I was to give you a task or ask someone to do something, an actual person to do something. These are what I would, say are things I should do and don't do. If I was to give you a task, you'd want me to be clear and specific. You'd want me to give examples. You'd want me to provide details, so what do I actually need to do? Where do I need to find the information for this task? What does actually good look like when I deliver this task or this content to you? Copilot is exactly the same. If I was to give it conflicting instructions, if I was vague, if I use slang or jargon that Copilot or you aren't familiar with, it's going to struggle to deliver effective results. Copilot is exactly the same. So having, knowledge leaders in your organizations, adopters, early adopters, training program, a center of excellence that users can go to for enablement and support on Copilot is essential. We don't want the worst case scenario is we license a user with Copilot and they don't see the value of it. So we want to train them so that they can see the value and use it effectively. My final slide, this is on preparing your organization for AI. What's a good roadmap look like? So first off, I'd ask that you look at, what are your organization's goals using AI? If we implemented it tomorrow, what does success look like? How can we measure success in this organization if we achieve this goal? What do we want to do essentially? Next is what your organization's pain points that AI can address. Is there a bottleneck in some process that Copilot can be utilized to resolve? Maybe you've got people that work in marketing who spend hours every day creating PowerPoints or creating marketing emails. You giving that person a Copilot license could save them hours and hours and hours every week. It's identifying those specific points that Copilot has can be implemented for, but then branching off from that, so we know, this is what we can do stage one, what can we do in stage two? What are your organization's current capabilities in terms of AI? Do you have, an internal expert that you can go to who will understand, what does it mean? What actually is Copilot? How do I use it? How do I start asking questions for it? How do we protect sensitive business data, etc.? Is there someone in the team or someone that we can go to help us with that? Next, does your organization have a data strategy in place? Going back to what we discussed just beforehand, do we have the right controls in place to protect sensitive business data? Do we have an effective strategy? If we do have a data strategy in place, is it fit for purpose? Is it potentially over restrictive, which is something that is potential as well? Because if we're restricting access for all of our users to be highly restrictive, we're going to limit their capabilities with Copilot because they can't find that information. So it's always a double-edged sword on productivity versus protecting sensitive business data. Final point, does your organization have the necessary infrastructure and resources to support AI initiatives? This is where Riven come in. They are, you're experts when it comes to AI. If you don't have the in-house capabilities or knowledge, that's where Riven can support you. They can, run through what does it look like for you guys, your roadmap, what do we need to do to get you ready for Copilot, to start rolling out Copilot to your users, deliver enablement, prepare your data strategy, etc., and so on. So, that's what they're there for, and that's everything from me in this part. So I'll hand back over to Will. I'll stop controlling. Actually, it should be what you don't want to do there. But if you do have any questions, guys, please feel free to put them in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Scott and Naomi, for putting this together and presenting it. Yeah, I've been through the Copilot. I've been through a couple of training sessions on it now, and I'm still learning stuff. Still find it amazing. Like Scott said, it's definitely something to think about in terms of your IT infrastructure. If this is something that you want to consider. If it is something that you want to have a look at, definitely come back to us. Arrow, Microsoft, both running AI readiness assessments. It will tell you, if you're ready, or it will give you a breakdown of things that you need to look at. And yeah, I definitely recommend going on YouTube. I've been doing it for the last 2 weeks or so, and looking at some more of the demos. One that I particularly like was the Outlook, Copilot for Outlook. There's some crazy things going on in there around your tonality. Depending on who you're emailing, it picks up on how you've been emailing them before, rewords it to sound like you. It's crazy stuff. And play around with the Bing chat as well. Were there any questions? I'll just check the chat. Got one coming from the Q&A. So Steve asked, I tried with my premium license and it won't draft me a client contract from a template and a proposal because it says it's not an attorney. How do I get around this? Scott?
I would just make sure, or sort of clarify what we mean by premium license, because Copilot's not included with any other license. It's an add-on. So if you're talking about Bing Chat Enterprise, that would be included with a couple of the M365 licenses, but it's limited to the Edge browser. If you're trying to use it in Microsoft 365, you would need to have Copilot for Microsoft 365, which would be an add-on license you'd need to purchase.
Fantastic. Any other questions? If you do have any questions and you don't want to put them in the chat, or if it comes up after you've been thinking about it, definitely just send me an email or send the account manager who you're with at Riven an email, and we'll get it answered.
It saves some turning. That one, if you've got Copilot for Microsoft 365, I need to look into it specifically, so we can always pick that up with you after this call, just because I'm not sure on the specifics of the question. If you send, if you get into contact with Riven, they'll probably contact myself, and I can look into that for you, just to make sure, what it is that we're trying to do, just because it sounds like you've got a specific problem there.
Yeah, I've made a note of that. I'll get in touch with you, Steve. We'll figure out what's going on. Awesome. Okay. I just want to leave it a couple more seconds, see if anyone's typing away for a question. No? Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining. It was nice to, get out there and get out there with the customers and inform you guys of like the new products that are coming out, especially one that's as trending as Copilot. Yeah, as I said, any other questions you want to have a look into it, just get in touch with us and we'd be happy to help. Thanks for joining, guys.